What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex, you watching the Ragin Ronin review. I got a review for you. Last Friday, I saw X-Men Days of Future Past, and X-Men Days of Future Past marks the 7th installment in the X-Men franchise as a whole. There was X-Men, X2, Last Stand, Origins Wolverine, First Class, and The Wolverine, which came out last year. And with this being the 7th installment in the franchise, I'd have to say that this is the best one. And you know why? It's because Bryan Singer is the director. When X-Men first came out, the first one, Bryan Singer directed, it was great. And then X2 came out, he was also director, he made it even better. And then First Class came out, which was a prequel. It wasn't directed by Bryan Singer, but he served as a producer. Matthew Vaughn was the director, and now Days of Future Past is here. And I have to say that when you really look back at all the X-Men films, all 7 of them, the only ones that really stand out as being great are the ones that have Bryan Singer's involvement in them. The Last Stand, directed by Brett Ratner, was just like, man, like they pretty much screwed up the franchise. X-Men Origins Wolverine, that was even worse. The continuity is even more screwed. And then with the Wolverine, I can't say that it's a bad movie. It's actually a pretty good movie, but it just missed the mark. Like, it could have been better. And there was just more potential there, but they just missed it. Now, with X-Men Days of Future Past, it looks like Bryan Singer fixed everything that was wrong with Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine. In fact, like, they just forget everything that happened in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Let's just fix what they screwed up in The Last Stand. And Bryan Singer does that. He does a fan service to the X-Men fans by making this a great movie. And how does he make it great? By doing the one thing that he has been doing with all the previous films, and that is having a great story. It's not just about the action, it's not just about the visuals. He already has all the characters already in the movie. The characters that we all know and love from the previous films, they're all back. All you gotta do is wrap a great story around it. And that's the one thing that makes this movie stand out. It's the story. Everybody loves a good time travel story. And with time travel, it can either go one of two ways. It could be really, really bad or really, really good. In this case, it's really, really good, and that is because of Bryan Singer's direction. It's his attention to detail, not just as a storyteller, but also as someone who's telling an X-Men story, that really helps makes this movie great and stand out from the rest. When telling a time travel story, there's all these little things or rather variables, which can make your story just go downhill if you just miss these little things. Because we've seen time travel movies where they just screw everything up, and then you're just filled with all these questions at the end of the movie. But for X-Men Days of Future Past, I'd have to say that everything that takes place in Days of Future Past is now definitive. What I mean by that is that from this point on, they can do what the Avengers has been doing, and that is just making it bigger and better. Because they had to fix a lot of the stuff that Last Stand screwed up. But anyways, all I want to say is that this is a really, really great movie, and it's all because of the story, Bryan Singer's direction. He does a fan service for the X-Men fans. He fixes everything that Last Stand screwed up on, and I love that they brought in all the characters from, first of all, X-Men, and also the characters that we got introduced to in Last Stand, and also the new characters that we got introduced to in First Class. And by doing that and blending them all together, there's some great moments of chemistry. I think that there's some pretty awesome performances in there. James McAvoy was great as a young Charles Xavier. Patrick Stewart is always fun to watch as the original Charles Xavier. Then Michael Fassbender, he always shines as the villainous Magneto. And then Ian McKellen, he does a great job as usual. And what I like about this is that even though Logan / Wolverine, you know, we've seen him many times, I find that him being the lead in this movie, in the franchise rather, it always seems to work. At least it always seems to work for the fans, but I find that it works this time around because he is the time traveler in this movie. So him trying to convince the people of the past, the X-Men of the past, or rather the mutants of the past, that something big is going to happen, you know, I love that. I love that kind of that story concept. It really makes it very, very interesting. It kind of reminds you of Back to the Future in like how Marty McFly had to convince Doc Brown. It's the same type of concept, but it works. Another thing that I really, really like is, of course, the moments with Beast. Beast, I think this is his moment to shine. All right, in First Class, he was cool, but it was just an introduction. In The Last Stand, you know, I felt that they could have done more with him, with Kelsey Grammer's character as Beast. But this time around, this Beast is the one I really, really like because he contributes. He contributes to the story not just as a brawler and as a beast, but also as a character that serves a purpose in the story. Alright, and another thing that I really like about this movie is that they really gave Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique a much bigger role. Jennifer Lawrence, of course, you know, they're really riding on her star power. She's a big star now, and therefore she needs to have a much bigger role in this movie. And she does, and I really, really love that. She does so much more than she ever did in First Class and Rebecca Romijn Stamos did in the first two X-Men films combined. Okay, I really like her role in this. And that's one of the great things about this movie. Is not just the characters, but the balance and the distribution of the screen time for the characters. Every character serves some sort of purpose, okay? Except for there are some mutants that are just shown there, just, you know, to do a bit of a fan service for the X-Men fans. They want to see some of their favorite mutant characters in the movie, except they're kind of really, really small roles and almost like cameos. That's kind of cool. I like that Bryan Singer doesn't just focus on the main group of mutants, but he also gives a little bit of screen time for these minor mutants. And that's kind of cool. I really like that he does that, right? But at least it's not entirely focused on Wolverine. Sure, he is the leader, but still, there are a lot of other characters that really have their moments. And speaking of having their moments, Quicksilver. Man, Quicksilver. He steals the show. The best part in the entire movie is Quicksilver. Okay, anytime he's on screen, he is awesome because of his ability of his lightning fast speed. I love it. We needed to see more of Quicksilver, okay? I think that's one thing that could have made the movie even better. The movie is already really great, but I gotta say that as far as action goes, Bryan Singer still isn't someone who I'd like to say someone that brings spectacular action. Right when he was directing X-Men, the very first one, 14 years ago, he said that he didn't want to make an action movie with a superhero action movie. He wanted to make a character-driven comic book movie with action in it. He said that about X-Men, and he continues to do that with X-Men Days of Future Past, and he does that. Alright? I wouldn't say that the action is spectacular, but it is great when it does happen. Now, Bryan Singer, during the production of the film, he did say that this is going to be the Avengers of X-Men. This kind of created some expectations for me, okay? We've already seen what the Avengers, what the action is like in the Avengers. It's very super heroic, like superhero heroic. A lot of acts of heroism and all that stuff. It's kind of different with mutants. In this movie, it's a little bit, you know what, I'd have to say that the final act of the film isn't necessarily underwhelming, but I wouldn't say it's spectacular in the same scale as the Avengers. It kind of has its epic moments, but it's a very different kind of epicness from the Avengers. You know what, I'd have to say that the Avengers is more visually driven, and X-Men Days of Future Past is more story-driven. And that's what I like about this movie. It's got a lot of story moments. And man, there's a lot of great moments. I don't even want to talk too much about him because I don't want to spoil it for you. But all I gotta say is that I love this film. There's so many great moments about it. This is the best X-Men film to date, and I also have to say that to make this movie better, I wish that the final act was a little bit more spectacular. And I wish that there could have been a little bit more Quicksilver. Just add in one more scene, okay? Because I had a little bit higher expectations in terms of the action. But Bryan Singer is a different type of storyteller. He's not driven by visuals. He's more driven by story, and I totally respect that. And therefore, at the end of the day, after watching this film, I'm gonna have to give this movie a 9.25 out of 10. There's a very high score. The 0.75 deduction is mainly about some things that I could have expected from the visuals. And another thing I felt is that Wolverine is a little tamer this time around. They kind of toned him down a little bit, possibly because in the Wolverine film, which came out last year, he was doing quite the body count with ninjas in Japan. So I think they kind of tamed him down a little bit just to balance out the other characters. All right, so there you have it. That's all I gotta say in this video. 9.25 out of 10. I really love this film. What an awesome film. I had a great time from beginning to end. Very engaging, great pacing, great storytelling. I was never bored. Very entertaining. Once again, 9.25 out of 10, and stay tuned for my spoiler review where I'm really gonna get in depth into what I liked and didn't like about the movie, alright? There you have it, that's all I gotta say in this video. As always, if you enjoyed this review, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation, also follow me on Twitter, @RaginNation. My name is Alex Yu. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, peace. Included her in it, right? Isn't that supposed to be Scarlet Witch? But I always thought it was his twin sister. But anyways, I'm just throwing that out there.